First episode of Smash.
You
welcome
already
to
messed up.
welcome to the first episode of Smash History. I'm Jekt, aka Anok, my actual name, aka Edwin Budding. I'm a Marth player and Melee fan for about 3 years, on and off. Um, I like writing about Melee. I'm known for writing in the Smash History articles. I made Marth. I'm a former journalist. Why don't you introduce yourself, Michael?
Okay. My name is Michael, aka Catastrophe, which is my gamer tag, aka, as most people know me, the Game Facts legend Pikachu942, the 942nd Pikachu. I'm the best in the world. I am a Sheik main. I was formerly Marth, but I switched to Sheik because my Sheik's way better. I'm in high school. I'll be graduating this year. Yes, I'm actually really young. I've been in the scene since Genesis 2. Yes, I know that's extremely surprising. But I didn't start really following until Apex 2012 because Hobby was amazing. So, yeah, that's me. Oh, and I do all the data for the Smash history.
Yeah.
Well, not all the data, but like a lot of the data.
Basically, both of us work on the Smash History series together. We've known of the scene for a fairly long time, so we're not quite doc kids, but both of us started playing a lot more around that era. So we're kind of in that weird mix, like I guess like Apex kids, if that's a thing.
Apex kids.
I'm slightly older. I'm 22. He's 16. So
I'll be 17 in like a few days though.
yeah. So without further ado, if you're watching the stream, thanks. If you aren't, that's okay. I'm gonna try to upload this as either a podcast or as a video. So without further ado, let's get started. So in case you're new here, or you have some segment, or you have some sort of knowledge of what we're about, we write a lot of articles about Smash history, mainly centered around sort of the top 10 of each year. We were inspired to do the project by something called SSBMRank, which it was run by Melee and Onme, one centralized Smash organization and community force that listed the top 100 players of the last 3 years. So naturally, as historians and writers and Smash fans, we wanted to know sort of who are the best players of the years gone by, or of the years past. Because we all know players like Ken, we know players like Azen, but what about players like Court, or what about players like Lovage, who newer fans may not know? So our series is based on research done by both of us, and writing and chronicling the best players of each year. So after moderate success with that, we started a new project called UltimateSSBMRank, which is our attempt to chronicle the 10 best players of all time in Super Smash Bros. Melee. So for this stream, we're going to be going over sort of the articles we've put out so far. This is my personal list, so I've sort of spearheaded this project, but Pikachu, obviously, as my fellow Smash historian partner, has done his fair share of work. This is just my list, so we're going to be going through what I've published so far and talking about each part of it sort of separately and the nuances behind it. So think of this like a read-through, but much more interactive.
All right, so
Pika, make sure to check the chat also.
Yeah, I'm always checking the chat. Don't worry.
Okay. So essentially, if you haven't read our article, or even if you have, here's basically a short summary, along with what we said. My main criteria in looking at players within the top 10 were the number of years that they were within our top 10 for Retro SSBMRank, which is basically our top 10 for each year, and SSBMRank. We looked at the number of years We looked at the number of years a player ranked within the top 5 of Retro SSBMRank or SSBMRank, and then we looked at the years as number 1, as well as the number of titles. The way I defined a title is a tournament won by someone where 2 other top 5 players were attending, if they were a top 5 player, or whether 3 top 5 players were attending and they won. So keep in mind that I have a subjective criteria for what a title is. Other people may have a little bit more stringent of a criteria, but given all the data I had, I thought it was the best example. So So before starting my top 10, I wanted to talk about who barely missed the top 10, or essentially the honorable mentions. So I guess it's more of a top 30. But the first three people that I wrote down on my list were EK, Masashi, and Amsa. EK was a famous European Marth player who was really good from France. He was thought of as
Sweden.
Sweden.
You made that mistake in the article too at first.
Oh, I did. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, I swear, I swear we're credible people here.
Yes. Very credible.
So, EK was thought, EK, referred to as the European Ken. He was a really strong Marth player. When Captain Jack played him, he said he was about as good as Ken. Very solid. Again, didn't really have results in the United States, so I couldn't put him much.
He never traveled outside of Europe. He traveled to the Netherlands sometimes, but he never really went to anywhere else. So.
And for more experienced fans who know EK, you might know him for being the victim of what was then the best comeback in Melee history. Notably when Amsa came back from 4 stocks to 1 to beat him. But more on Amsa later. The person I had at 29th on my list was Masashi, a Japanese fox who was arguably the best player in the world, but we don't really have enough data on him to say for sure. He was a Japanese fox, very campy, but he's basically the godfather for laser-heavy fox play as we know it today.
Yeah. He was considered quite easily the best fox in the world in 2004, and even 2005, a lot of people still considered him to be the best fox. So he was really good. He was around the same as Captain Jack in Japan, though. Captain Jack swears that Masashi was better.
Yeah, I always find that interesting because it's unclear whether it's entirely grounded in reality and whether he actually beat him most of the time or whether it's a cultural thing of Captain Jack being humble and giving credit to Masashi. I
feel like he gives a lot of credit to people because he said EK was as good as Ken and all this stuff. So I think he loves to give credit to his opponents, but I also think there is some truth to it.
Yeah, I mean Captain Jack notably told people at Tournament Go 6 who he'd destroy in friendlies or bracket that they would ask him if he was the best player in Japan, and he would usually laugh and say that Masashi was much better.
Yeah.
And just sort of to put that in perspective, imagine if you played Armada in tournament in the United States, and he laughed and said that there was someone better than him. Or I guess that's not a good comparison because Leffen is there and they're around the same level. But imagine if Leffen didn't exist and there was just this unknown quantity, this rumored legend. That's kind of Masashi's legacy in a nutshell.
It's like, imagine if today we went to Russia and we found out people there have been playing Smash all these years. We fought this one guy, he 4-stocked Armada with Kirby, and then said that there was somebody better than him.
Yeah, I mean that's a little bit of a stretch, but it'd be like if he beat Armada's Peach with DK.
Yeah, basically.
So again, Masashi's kind of an unknown quantity. That's partially why I couldn't rank him higher. But we go into my first controversial decision, putting Amsa at 28th. In case you guys don't know who Amsa is, he's the guy that made the 4-stock to 1-stock comeback on EK. Eventually became the best in Europe. Fun fact, every single tournament he entered from the Renaissance of Smash 3 in July 2006 to Smash Attack in April 2009, he won. He lost.
That's 3 years.
And just for reference, Ken, who a lot of people consider to be the best of the golden age of Melee, he didn't go 3 years winning every single tournament he entered.
He would go 1 year. That's his best streak, so this is way more impressive in terms of continental domination. And
one of the things that separates Amsa, I think, from players like Masashi and EK is that Amsa did go to the United States, albeit after his prime. He entered Pound 4. He defeated Armada there. He placed within the top 8 at the event. So he got third. Yeah, actually even high. That's underplaying it. So he did get third. So that decision naturally got a little bit of flack from people. When I talked to the Crimson Blur about it, he said he had Amsa within his top 15 or top 20 because of his dominance throughout Europe.
which is understandable. I can certainly see him up there, but he didn't have enough data. I personally still think you put him a little bit too low, but I wouldn't put him in my top 20 just because of lack of data.
I think well, ultimately that's what makes it really difficult. Like you have to understand, or people have to understand that the perception of Europe before Armada was not a good one. A lot of
No,
people a lot of
because
people
like
thought
the
these
best
players.
from Europe would like. Sorry, you go.
Oh, sorry. No, because a lot of people thought the best from Europe were okay players that would not make it out of pools at majors in America because they would beat up on opponents that would miss techs. They would beat up on players that didn't know how to DI. So there was a lot of warranted skepticism back then about players
Yeah,
like Amsa.
and and the best European players from back in the day would come over like Mr. Silver, Rune, the Doug. They came and they didn't do too well in the US. The Doug did pretty good, but everyone else did very poorly. And the Doug was not like a top player, so people didn't really expect AMSA or Armada to do super well when they came over.
So other than Japan, really the United States for the most part kind of dominated the game post the golden age, which is around where AMSA became the best player. So that's another thing you have to consider. AMSA's prime sometimes goes overlooked because it coincided with with the end of the golden era and sort of the post brawl age.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going over him. The next tier of players I grouped as the regional legends. So these are players that were arguably sort of borderline top 10 players in their prime, maybe top 10. I consider, again, they're titled regional legends, so I thought of them in a sense that these are players that probably wouldn't win tournaments, or they wouldn't win nationals, but they could take down contenders that could go for it. So, for example, Hugs in his prime was able to defeat players like PC Chris. He could defeat Chillin. Players like Lucky used to give players like Westballs, even as recently as 2014, a hard time. Lucky even had victories over Mutaking and Hungrybox throughout his career, and was top 5 in SoCal, and still is top 5 in SoCal. There's of course Hacks, who, if you don't know, was a up-and-coming Captain Falcon play. Actually, you know what? I'll let the Tri-State guy or the New York guy here explain Hacks' legacy.
Okay, Hacks was a very good Falcon. He started playing in 2006 or 2005, around there. His very first tournament, he played Isaiah first round and beat him because Isaiah jumped around and Falcon punched everywhere. That's per Hacks, not from me. Hacks became a very exceptional Captain Falcon player, and around 2009, he really started to cement himself as like a top player, and like many people would consider him a top 10 player, though I personally don't. He didn't do as well as people think he did, but in friendlies he would destroy people. So that was the main thing for him, and he was always really good until he didn't want to play Falcon anymore because he didn't feel like he could get any better with Falcon. So he switched to Fox, and Fox finally, I think, got him into the definite top 10, where he was a demigod of sorts in 2014, and then his hands got destroyed, and then we all cried. The end.
That's actually a pretty good way of putting it. And Flyam, Nita, and SFAT are similarly sort of close to demigod players. SFAT right now, obviously in 2016, having probably his best year ever. And
Yeah, definitely.
And Flyam, Nita also being, although he's not as active as much, he was always a borderline top 10 or top 10 player. Fun fact about Fly Amanita that a lot of people forget, along with having sets over Mutaking, Fly Amanita is one of the few people that was able to defeat Mango during Mango's reign of terror. So many people forget that. People forget that Fly Amanita actually defeated Hungrybox at Don't Go Down There, Jeff. One of the things
he three stocked him game 1, by the way. He 3-stocked Hungrybox game 1.
So one of the things that you have to consider with Fly also is that unlike other ice climbers, Fly was not a wobbler, and not because of any moral qualms against it. He just literally was not comfortable wobbling and couldn't do it consistently.
Yeah, he would do it. He did it a little bit in like 2011. I was talking about it. He did a little bit in 2011, but then like right after he finally started to be able to do it, it got banned. and then his muscle memory for it got lost, and he can't wobble again. He actually started to learn how to wobble again, and then he retired, and then he came back for a little bit. So Fly's weird.
Yeah. I just think his legacy gets kind of swept under the radar, unfortunately, because of people like Chudat, who were who was a top 5 player in his prime. Unfortunately gets swept under the rug because of wobbles as well. Another very famous ice climbers player we'll go into later. But is everything all right? Everything all right in the back?
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just stuff.
Okay, so and then after Fly, we have SFAT. If you've been following the scene this year, aka have not been living under a rock while playing Melee, or if you have been living under a rock, SFAT is not just a really good Melee player this year. He's always been around that top 10, top 20 level, but and now lately he's making the jump into a demigod status. For a long time, he's been a member of NorCal's Big Three, along with Pew and Shroomed. Currently, he has victories over Mango, Hungrybox, and Mutaking in tournament. Back in his heyday when he was up and coming, he was often thought of as kind of the West Coast Cactar, a very positioning-based fox, extremely fundamental, big on stage control, just a very likable guy, both locally and a likable player.
And like, he's also a very proficient doubles player. Him and Pew, known as PewFat, are more than likely the second best team in the world right now, behind Armada and Mewtwo King. They've been a very good team for a very long time. Even as far back as 2009, 2010, they were beating like really good teams and bringing Sound Spectre and Tang really close before either of them were that good players. So they've always had really good double synergy.
Yeah, I find it always interesting that they're thought of as a modern team, but SFAT and PPU have actually been around for a fairly long time. And another fun fact that many people don't know is that SFAT actually started off. He played a lot of characters, but he started off playing Marth, and PPU played Fox. So that's another factor into why the two have such good synergy together.
And also, wait, what was I gonna say? Never mind. Continue.
No, it's okay. So after that tier, we go to the Dark Horse National Threats. So these are the players that in their prime are like a little bit more concretely demigods, just a step beneath the top 5 or top 4 players. These players essentially they never won nationals, but again, they could consistently beat players a tier ahead of them. Neither really had arguments for being none of these players have ever had arguments for being the best player in the world, but chances are that they've been in the top 10 for a long period of time to at least be established of demigods of the game. So these include people like Westballs, Plup, and Axe, who if you follow the scene now, you know them. But it also features people that not many others know. So Kirby Kaze features Chillin, features Zoo, Wobbles, and Shroomed.
And the legend himself, Jesus.
Yeah, and J-Man. So obviously, most of you are probably familiar with the players still playing today. Like, you're probably familiar with Westballs, Plup. You're probably familiar with Axe. You're probably familiar with Chillin for a different reason, but we'll get into that later. You're probably familiar with Shroomed. In case you don't know, Shroomed actually used to be a premier Dr. Mario player in the world. He was very good at that. Although he didn't have Godwins as a Dr. Mario, he was the best in NorCal for a while. We ranked him in the top 10 of our retro SSBMRank about 5 years in a row, or
Dude,
at least
he's so good.
3 years.
He's so good.
SSBMRank has had him for 2 years. So one of the reasons you see Shroomed at the top of the list is because he's been so consistently top 10 for so long. Out of non-God players in the modern era, there's really no one else like Shroomed who has just consistently showed up at nationals and been a threat to top players.
Yeah, nobody is anywhere near as consistent as Shroomed. He's always like in like the 10 to 8 spot, like all like in the year since like 2011 to now. It's insane how consistent he is. Nobody besides a god is as consistent as Shroomed. It's by a lot. Nobody is anywhere near as consistent.
Are there any questions that people have at all about these players?
No, I don't see any questions so far.
So I want to take a second and talk about Chillin for a moment. I went over this in my article, but just kind of the too long didn't read version of it. Chillin is unfortunately known now because of the Leffen money match, because of the whole calling him out but losing 5-0. But Chillin in his prime was not a joke. In addition to having the upset over Ken, we had him in our top 10 for 4 years, and during that period of time, he actually beat all the top players of his era at least once. So that doesn't just mean his upset of Ken. He has sets over Azen. He has sets over Chudat. He's beaten Isaiah. For the era afterwards, he beat PC Chris before. He's beaten
Korean DJ.
Mutaking, Korean DJ. Chillin really the best way to put it is that a lot of the demigods of today's era have not defeated all the gods, or the top players. So Westballs hasn't defeated Armada or Mutaking, and Plup hasn't defeated Armada, Axe hasn't defeated Armada, but you have to consider that back then Chillin had defeated every one of the top players. So when he entered a match, there was never someone you could discount him against. He always had a fighting chance, and I think that's extremely impressive, even for the era he was in, and that should be remembered more about Chillin, and not just the fact that he released a bunch of meme raps, or 2 meme raps.
Hey, they're good, man. They're fire.
Hey, man, I'm not denying that.
All right.
So in case you're not sure who J-Man is, I also go into this in my article a little bit. J-Man is a tri-state fox, known for the J-Man lasering, aka short hop double lasering across the stage to his opponents.
And J-Man shines, where he back throws you at 0, and he shines you and you die. It's the best.
So J-Man was an up-and-coming Fox player in Tri-State for a while from New York City. Notably, the only person to take a set off Mutaking after Pound 3 in 2008. He won Apex 2009. A year later, even took 2 sets off Mango that same year during Mango's reign.
A serious mango, by the way. It was actually a legitimate mango.
Well, it's disputed, but it's still a set off Mango. So.
And he was using some of his better characters. He wasn't like going Mario or something.
Yeah. So one of the things that people forget about J-Man, or that they may not know, is J-Man is actually one of the few non-God, non-Leffen players to win a tournament with 2 gods attending. In fact, I'm fairly certain, off the top of my head, he's the only one I can think about.
He's the only one, unless you consider Ken or PC winning before Mango was a god. But that doesn't count.
So basically in the post MLG era of Melee, J-Man he won one of the strangest tournaments ever in Don't Go Down There, Jeff, where Hungrybox lost early to Fly Amanita before losing losers to Lucky, and Mango lost to J-Man while stubbornly playing Marth, who was not one of his mains, and then lost to Hungrybox and losers. But J-Man, after beating Mango, just beat Zoo and Lucky to win the tournament. And
yeah, it was actually very, very convincing to how he beat those guys. It was it's a very actually impressive win, despite him not necessarily having the toughest bracket.
Well, I think one of the things that's interesting about it is that people hyped up J-Man for so long, but after that performance, no one was really impressed with it at the time to say that, oh, J-Man, yeah, he's a contender for being the best player in the world. We just knew that, like, there was no meaningful data gained other than Mango should not have tried to play Marth against him in winners.
Mango still almost won. It was game 5. It's embarrassing. But yeah, J-Man, and then after that, J-Man just kind of, 2011, J-Man didn't travel at all, and then after 2011, he just fell off the face of the earth.
Anything you want to say about Zoo?
Oh my god, Zoo. Zoo is so good. He was actually extremely consistent throughout all these different years. I remember talking with somebody on Reddit, and they said Plup got shafted on this list, and that he was better than somebody like, say, Zoo. And they gave Zoo as a specific example. And I said Zoo, unlike Plup, was top 10 for more than just the years that Plup has had. Plup has only been top 10 for 2 years. Zoo was top 10 for a very long time. He was top 10 in 2009, 2011, and 2012, and had a very good argument for it in 2010. He was a very strong player, one of the best Falcos of all time. He has that infamous win over Mewtwo King at Genesis, but he also has 2 wins over Mewtwo King at another local, at a No John's Monthly that he went to. He's also beaten Mango before, albeit his secondaries, but still impressive. He's just been an overall very solid player for a very long time. He's still a very good player, arguably top 25, depending on your criteria. He's a very consistent, solid player, and just he's very impactful and influential in the scene.
Yeah, he's also notorious for sort of the happy feet combo videos, which unfortunately people now know because of the Wombo combo video to which he was a victim of. But I think it's also like sort of similar to how people remember Chillin for the wrong reason. I think people should remember Zoo for the correct reason of him being a demigod player for a very long time. Just really could compete with anyone that he matched up against, and the fact that he actually won a set against Mewtwo King and then beat him twice at another weekly years later is something that a lot of people forget, and they shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like Zoo has like this aura about him that I think like you can't really count him out against anybody. He just has like this like thing, like you feel like he can beat anybody if he just puts his mind to it. A good example of this is he is the only person in a crew battle to straight up beat Armada in a 4 stocks versus 4 stocks. I believe it was at pound 5. It might have been pound 4. It was one of those two. He just straight up beat Armada 4 stocks to 4. I think it might have been on Dreamland too.
Yeah, so that's kind of Zoo for you if you're not sure about him. Wobbles, if you're extremely new, you might not know him, but I will let Michael talk about Wobbles because he is probably Wobbles' biggest fan in the world. So.
Oh my god, I love Wobbles. Wobbles is the best person in the world. He is my idol. He's my favorite Smash Brothers player. Okay. Wobbles started in 2006, 2007 under the name Honor Bound. Then he started getting pretty decent with a couple different characters, Mario, Fox, Marth, all these weird characters, but he never really broke out to be like one of the best in Texas or Arizona. Then he switched to Ice Climbers, and he watched this YouTube video of a Japanese player, I believe by the name of Red, not the Japanese Red from 64, a different Red. He did all these videos of all these advanced techniques with different characters at the time, and he made wobbling. And then Wobble started using it, and it was just called the Ice Climbers Infinite at the time. And his breakout tournament was at NCT2, NorCal Tournament 2, where he got 7th, tying with Isaiah, or outplacing Isaiah, I forget. He tied or outplaced Isaiah at that tournament. That was like his first big breakout tournament. And after that, he became one of the best in Arizona and Texas, in the general Southwest area. He became a super top player in 2010. He got his first major win where he beat Scorpion Master, and then he got a really high placing at Apex 2010. I believe 5th. He got 5th at Apex 2010, which is an extremely high placing for somebody that didn't really do amazing at his previous nationals. And then at Genesis 2, he beat Mewtwo King, which was like his first legitimate God win, and he wound up getting 9th at that tournament, and he was finally cementing himself as a really strong player. He beat Mewtwo King again at Apex 2012 and got 9th there as well, or 13th. No, 9th. And he was a very solid player. He didn't really travel a whole lot, actually, in the earlier days. He was mainly just, like, he went to a couple of the super big nationals and would beat them a bunch, and he beat a bunch of top players. Then in 2013, that was really his peak year. In 2013, he did okay at Apex 2013. He got 13th. He lost to Armada and V-Wins in like Game 3 last stock. They were the 2 best Peaches at the time. And then at Kings of Cali 2, he lost to Shroomed, and then one of the best losers runs of all time, where he beat Fly Amanita, Pew Pew, West Balls, and Shroomed. And then he had a very, very close set with Mango. It was 3-0, but every game was like super last hit. And then at Evo, he had probably the greatest non-God run of all time. And in my opinion, it was better than every single one of Leffen's runs until Gommel. I think Gommel was finally when Leffen had a singular tournament run better than Wobbles. That tournament was insane. He beat Fiction, he beat Lord, he beat Shroomed, and then he became the only non-God ever to beat 3 gods in one tournament. He beat Mango, he beat PPMD, and he beat Hungrybox. And he made winner side of grand finals of then the biggest tournament and still the most important tournament of all time. And even now, he's still a good player. He can still take sets off of gods like Mewtwo King and still take games off people like Hungrybox, like he did at Forte 2, only like 2 years ago. So he's still a very good player. He has some consistency issues right now, but he's still a very, very solid player and an all-time great, and definitely the second best ice climbers of all time.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. I don't think there's really anything more that has to be said about it. Just that his Evo, I think his Evo 2013 run is probably what he's most notable for, but he had been pretty good before that. Another funny note about Wobbles is that in 2012, when there was an attempt to make a ELO rating for all the competitive players, Wobbles actually finished 5th on that list ahead of Mango, which was controversial at the time.
Yeah. Wobbles was always a really good player. People always considered him really good, but I think the Evo 2013 run really cemented him as just one of the greatest players of all time.
So would you say, other than Amsa, would you agree with my list so far?
I mostly agree with your list, with the exception of one person missing from the list. His name starts with an R. I'm kidding.
Okay.
His name starts with a C, and it ends with a T, and it's 4 letters, and it's not the word you're thinking of. His name is Court.
So guys like Court, Lovage, Wes, I guess. I considered putting them in the list ahead of the international legends or ahead of the more well-known regional players, but I thought that their primes and time at sort of the spotlight of the game were fairly short. And again, it was a very tough decision. They're all obviously great players, but in the end, I had only 20 spots for honorable mentions. So.
Yeah, I do agree with you that it is a tough decision, and I agree with maybe leaving Lovich off the list because he only had one super, super good year. But Court was top 10 for 2 years. He was top 3, arguably, but he was definitely top 4 in 2008, which is incredible. No other person really could break into that upper echelon of like gods besides him. He was actually ranked above Azen, above PC Chris on our list, above Chudat, which is insane. He was only below Mewtwo King and Mango, and he actually beat Mewtwo King multiple times in Falcon Dittos, which, by the way, Mewtwo King's Falcon actually could take games off of PC Chris's Falco, so it's not like Mewtwo King's Falcon was bad.
Yeah, it's certainly true. I was just I just wanted to, thought the international, for an all-time list, I thought that the international legends were extremely important, so I had to come with a decision to value longevity in that case, or sustainability over short times. But I can understand the argument otherwise.
Yes, I agree with you. Personally, in my opinion, I put Court just under J-Man on my all-time list. I think they're both really close. But J-Man has more longevity. That's where I would personally put Court, around J-Man. Just my opinion.
Okay. So moving on, we kind of go into my next tier of players that I called title-holding chic players with short primes. So these are players that won championships or won really big title at some point in their career, or they had a history of beating the game's best player. But neither of these two were really they never finished as number 1 on our retrospective rankings for a whole year. But they certainly had stretches where they may have been thought of as number 1, or they could have been argued as the best player in the world. So starting with Captain Jack, we talked about him a little bit before, but he was one of Japan's best players. Probably he would consider himself number 2 from the era. But when he came to America, he notoriously beat Ken several times in public friendly sessions, and even beat him. And along with beating him with Sheik, he would even beat him with characters like Donkey Kong and Bowser. And at that tournament Go 6th, the first one to feature the top Japanese player playing against Americans. He beat everyone he faced in bracket, including double eliminating Chudat, but only lost to Azen twice, and that was even after resetting grand finals with the first set. So the fun thing that people should know about the tournament Go 6 Captain Jack and Asin sets, is that Captain Jack, obviously initially known as a Sheik player, actually switched to Doc for the majority of the rest of his games against Asin after getting chain grabbed in the Sheik Ditto when he first started playing Asin.
Yeah, because Captain Jack was not. He didn't really like chain grabbing. He wasn't a chain grabber. He didn't agree with it. So, but Asin did do it anyway. So it was arguable whether Captain Jack might have been able to compete more in the Sheik Ditto if he chain grabbed. But as it stood in the Sheik Ditto, Asin dominantly 3-0'd him in winners finals. So that's when Captain Jack decided to go Doc in grand finals, and he was actually able to reset the bracket. And then Asin was forced to go Marth in the second set to compete.
I'm fairly. Wait, are you sure it was a 3-0? Because I think they played four. I think they played best of sevens. Because they played
grand finals was best of 7. Winners finals was best of 5.
Oh right. No, you're right. Okay. No, I'm fairly certain you're right. And it's funny that you mentioned the grand finals because Chillin I think referred to it as the most bizarre counterpick war of all time, where Captain Jack's Doc would beat Asin Sheik, so Asin would counterpick Marth to beat Doc, but then Captain Jack would counterpick Sheik to beat Marth.
And Asin would go to the Sheik Ditto and win, and then just go back and forth.
So those are kind of the possibilities to come up with. But nonetheless, after finishing second at Tournament Go 6, Captain Jack went to MLG San Francisco 2004. He 6-0'd Isaiah, which was thought of as extremely remarkable at the time because along with being a dominant singles player, Isaiah was thought of as the most talented Smash player by both the West Coast and the East Coast. So for Jack to come in and defeat one of the national sort of Smash heroes in such a dominant fashion, it had never been seen before.
And also, Isaiah actually beat Ken in losers finals, so it's not like Isaiah was playing bad at that tournament either. Captain Jack was just dominant.
And the thing about Captain Jack that you also have to consider is that Captain Jack would beat anyone that he traveled against. If he had a scope and new competition and got to play with you for a little bit, he was remarkably strong at downloading you. So when he went to Australia, for instance, and played Kupo, who had never lost in her region, he beat her. And when he visited the Netherlands, he beat Remen at Dutch Tournament 10.
Mm-hmm. And both these players were very good. They were the best in their regions. Kupo was actually known to be beating people like Wife and Husband when they came over, who were top 20 players at the time, and she would just destroy them when they came over to Australia. And Remen was one of the best in Europe at Dutch Tournament 10, and at that point in time, he could have been argued over Eck because the two hadn't really faced off yet. So he could have been the best in Europe, and Captain Jack beat him.
Yeah. Think of Captain Jack as sort of a mercenary that went from region to region, always challenging their best players, and more often than not, coming on top. So that's kind of his legacy. On the other hand, you had a guy like Korean DJ, who traveled a lot near the beginning of his career, stopped traveling as much when school started getting to be a hassle for him, but he was still an extremely dedicated player. He frequently practiced. He would beat players like Mutaking. He would always give Ken a scare in bracket, if not just straight up beat him. And Korean DJ, sort of, the sad thing with him is that his career is kind of a what if because of his lack of titles and his relatively short prime. For example, along with getting a runner-up status at MLG, or along with placing as a runner-up at MLG Las Vegas 2006, his only other title victory per our criteria was MLG Long Island 2007, where he dominantly beat Mutaking and placed above PC Chris and Chudat as well. For the rest of the year, he didn't attend much, but his placings were still extremely remarkable. He finished second at Cataclysm 3, only losing to Mutaking, who was our number 1 of 2007, and he placed fourth at Viva La Smashtaclysm, which is one of the last tournaments of the year. When I asked Korean DJ about it, actually, he gave me a very funny answer about VLS. I asked him about the set he lost to Asin in winners, and the thing that Korean DJ told me is that he felt bad about that set because he wanted to beat Asin with Marth, and in quote unquote was playing really stubborn.
Hmm.
So it just adds another variable into sort of Korean DJ's potential versus his actual results in game. But nonetheless, he's a legendary player. If you've seen the Smash documentary, you recognize him as one of the main figureheads. He's known for his Sheik, but he also had an extremely competent, or not that's underplaying it, but he had a very good Marth that even years later, after he had stopped playing, defeated the Moon in Marth Dittos and defeated a player like Cobalt at Apex 2015. Korean DJ is probably one of the most talented players to ever play the game. He's extremely hardworking. He doesn't play so much anymore now because of hand injuries and diminished interest, but I think without a doubt he's a top 15 player and definitely one of the key figureheads in the game's growth.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And even now, he'd still be a good player just because of hand issues, as you saw at Shine 2016, where he went to his first tournament in a long time and made bracket, having a really close set with Professor Pro.
Yeah, I mean, he's just that kind of talent doesn't go away even if you stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty interesting to note that he frequently beat Ken when they did play, and just for an example, you can think of it similar to Leffen being a scare for Armada if they play in bracket, in terms of Leffen being kind of the up and comer and Armada being the old guard. That's what Korean DJ versus Ken was like back then. And for Korean DJ to come in and sort of beat Ken was truly something on its own.
Yeah, and actually, fun fact, in Ken's prime, the only person to have a positive record on him was Korean DJ.
So it just goes to show that if he wasn't the best player in the world, it certainly didn't matter when he played the best player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes into the first person that I go full in depth into, which is Isaiah. So the points I mentioned for Isaiah is that obviously he started off as an extremely talented West Coast player, known a little bit more for his 64 success with multiple characters and sort of his mastery of that game. Isaiah was a top 10 player for 3 years, from 2004 to the 2004 to the end of 2006. We had him as top 5 for 2004 and 2005, but he also has arguably one of the most impressive tournament wins of all time, and it technically doesn't count as a title for us. He won another tournament which did count as a title, which is MLG Los Angeles 2005, but at most 3 he notably defeated Ken twice and in some of the most influential sets in Melee history. When people watched Ken and Isaiah play each other, it was really, at the time, they were leagues ahead. It was thought of as the gameplay was thought of as leagues ahead of everyone else. Punishes were brought further than it had ever been seen before. They were going off stage for crazy edge guards at the time that weren't even thought of. They were seemingly coming up with new ideas on the spot, sort of improvising against each other. And the thing with Ken and Isaiah, which is important, it's important to recognize their dynamic to understand Isaiah's sort of legacy in the game, is Ken and Isaiah would team together and just whoop everyone. So when these two played in most 3 grand finals, it wasn't like a super hate-filled rivalry or anything, but it was 2 people that teamed with each other, and for whatever reason, Isaiah just really had it in him to defeat Ken that day. And part of Isaiah's legacy, of course, is he is easily the greatest Captain Falcon player of all time. So
easily.
So when you look at even basic Captain Falcon bread and butter things like stomp knee or up air knee, for instance, Isaiah invented those. Isaiah was the first Captain Falcon player to really do those things, and this is before an era of Wizrobe. This is before S2J really became prominent. This is before even Hacks and Dark Rain. Isaiah effectively godfathered the basics behind Captain Falcon, and it doesn't sound like much now.
Actually, I was gonna say that Isaiah actually trained people like Dark Rain and Silent Spectre. He had this thing called Falcon Dojo, where he would take all these up-and-coming Falcon players and he would specifically train them in what he knew to make sure that Falcon could still be like a viable character, like especially Sound Spectre. Sound Spectre was like his prodigy. It was like he really taught Sound Spectre everything.
So obviously, if you've seen the documentary, sort of one of the more unfortunately memey things is the idea that Isaiah could have been the best player in the world if he tried. So Pikachu, do you want to go into that?
Okay, so people saying that I the best if he tried. A lot of people, so-called doc kids, take that now and say that without any real meaning to it, and it's just as a meme. But in reality, back then, Isaiah being the best if he tried was an actual thing that legitimate top players believed, because they would watch him in friendlies and in tournament, and he was by far the most technical player of the time. He would be doing stuff that people. So there are some things that he did that some people even today don't even do. Like he was doing like crazy things back then. It's just unthinkable at the time. In like 2004, he was doing hack stashing, which is just ridiculous. It's just he was insane back then. His training regimen was insane. He carried all of his stuff from 64, as he is the greatest 64 player of all time. He carried all his knowledge from 64 into the game, so he already had amazing game knowledge, and he just added on to that with technical skill. And it's just like, I like to say Isaiah is if you took the talent of Mango with the work ethic of Mewtwo King and you put it together, and that's Isaiah.
But you gave him the mentality of me.
Yes.
No,
the mentality of a depressed Mewtwo King.
But by all accounts, Isaiah was a revolutionary player. And for newer people that haven't seen the documentary and you watch old footage, it may not look impressive because it's standard Captain Falcon things, but those standard Captain Falcon things were created by Isaiah. And particularly in the most 3 grand finals, they were effectively created on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes into my honorable mentions. I don't think there's anything we particularly disagree about. Is there anything else that we haven't gone through?
No, besides court, I generally agree with your tiering. Especially, I think some things in the tiers could be mixed around. Like me personally, I have some certain things in the tiers mixed around, but for the most part, our tiers and our list of players in general are basically the same. This is basically how the top players of all time would be rated, in my opinion.
All right. Well, sort of now we can go into the official top 10. For number 10, I had Chudat, who both Michael and I hold as the greatest Ice Climbers player ever. Excuse me. So, in case you don't know who Chudat is from Maryland from the Maryland Virginia region. He trained with guys like Chillin and Azen on his way to becoming prominent in the local scene. His breakout tournament was Tournament Go 6, where he shocked the world by making his way through bracket and defeating several people, including Isaiah twice in his prime in 2004, getting double eliminated by Captain Jack, but still finishing third at what was at the time the first, it was the biggest tournament ever, considering it had people from Japan like Captain Jack. You had Azen and Chudat there. You had the West Coast best there. Not just Ken and Isaiah, but you even had Sastifer, who was a Peach player from the Pacific Northwest region. Chudat's arguably his most impressive thing, even more impressive than beating Isaiah in my opinion, was beating Sastifer at this event, considering that not only had Sastifer upset Ken, but Sastifer also played Peach at the time. And in 2004, Peach versus Ice Climbers was considered unwinnable until Chudat defeated Sastifer. And keep in mind, Sastifer in this time was no slouch. He was easily a top 10 player. So for Chu to not only beat Isaiah in the same tournament twice, but to beat Sastifer was truly remarkable. And it sort of brought him into brought his name into the national scene for sure.
Yeah, and to go even more into that, ICs were low tier. They weren't mid tier. They were low tier before Chudak came in. People didn't understand how Ice Climbers worked with their 2-character dynamic. So it was just kind of like people didn't understand how Ices could be a good character with how they worked, and people thought Sopo was just a terrible character, just like the worst character in the game. Don't play him. But Chudat, he, with Tournament Go 6, he single-handedly bumped Ice Climbers like 10 spots on the tier list. And now they're considered on the fringe of being a top-tier character. Some people even just consider them a top-tier character. And that's basically all because of Chudat innovating with them and basically discovering desyncs. Like, he basically created desyncing with Ice Climbers, like, as an offensive move and not just doing it by accident. And also, his Sopo is considered one of the greatest in the world, if not the greatest. It's definitely, in my opinion, the greatest Sopo of all time, because he would go into low-tier tournaments, and he would do it specifically with just Sopo, and he would win over, like, pretty good people, pretty good low-tier mains, too. So it's just, Chudat was just an insane player with both Ice Climbers and with Sopo, and Tournament Go 6 was really the start of his amazing career.
And I think if Tournament Go 6 was kind of his breakout tournament, the next year in 2005 was probably when Chudat was at his best. He started off with a 3-way tie for first place at Getting Schooled. That sounds like a joke, but tournaments back then weren't as run efficiently as they are now. So at the first Getting Schooled, he, Mike G, and Azen split for first. He won Bomb 3, which was another big regional tournament in the MDVA region. He won MLG Nashville 2005 and Bomb 4 as well. Keep in mind that at this point, Azen didn't really play as seriously anymore because of burnout in early 2005. And without Azen there, there was an open spot for who the best East Coast player was. And Chu was more than willing to take that mantle. And his consistently high placings throughout the year were truly unlike anyone else. He didn't quite win a title in 2005 just because Ken was so good and so was Isaiah, but Chu was almost a lock for top 3 at any event he entered.
Yeah, he was insanely consistent. I would say, with the exception of Ken, he was the most consistent player. He would always get second or third at every tournament. Like, Isaiah's peaks might have been higher than Chu, but Isaiah would also, like, just bust her out at some tournaments. But Chu was always extremely consistent, would always place extremely high. He actually, I'm pretty sure he always beat Isaiah until 2006. Like, he was that dominant in that matchup. A really bad matchup, considering Chu is actually not known for his Falcon matchup. But Chu was just a very solid player. He always he never really got upset back in the day. Like, maybe in, like, 2007 he did, but in, like, 2005, 2006, 2004, he was an extremely consistent player, and it's just he would always prove that he was the best in the East Coast, especially in 2005.
So after that, Chu stayed around a top 5 level, still placing the top 8 of most tournaments. He never quite had an argument for being number 1, even among his biggest fans. But the way I like to think of Chu after 2005 to the end of the Golden Era is he was essentially the Mewtwo of his prime, or Mewtwo of sort of the gods. So think of him like a gatekeeper for the rest of the top players. So when you had guys like PC Chris come into the spotlight, when you had Azen's comeback, Chu was another member of the old guard, while Chu was another member of the old guard to keep them sort of at the top of the game. And while people like Isaiah sort of fell off over time and stopped taking the game seriously, Chu would often defeat up-and-coming players, including going 11-0 against Mewtwo and Korean DJ in 2006, and finishing 19-6 against them by the end of 2007 in total. That's basically how dominant Mango has been against West Balls and Plup over the last 2 years.
Chu is just an insane player, and after 2006, even going into later years like 2007, 2008, even arguably 2009, he was still like a top player. He was one of the best. He has an insane longevity. He went through not only the pre-Golden Era, he went through that, he went through the MLG era, and then he went through Brawl's death all the way up to the modern times, and was just always a super strong player, always a top 10 to top 30 player in the world. He's never really dropped below like a top 35 player. even now, he's arguably a top 20 player, and arguably the best ice climbers right now, which is insane because 2005 was his best year, and we are literally 11 years removed from his peak, and he's still arguably one of the best in the world.
Well, I wouldn't say like top 10, but he's still relevant.
Yeah, he's still relevant. He can still make top 8 at like nationals, and he has an argument. He doesn't have an argument for top 10, but I'd say he has an argument to be top 20 and an argument for the best ice climber player.
For sure. I think
Yeah.
and I think all time he's the best ice climber player ever. I mean,
Yes.
consider the people he's beaten. So let's go over his victories since even after 2007. Oh, actually, before we do that, thanks. The 2007 reminded me. Chudat's sadly his only national title is Pound 2, but you have to consider how impressive this was at the time, beating Mewtwo in 2007. And Mewtwo in 2007 was considered having figured out the punish game against most characters. So back in that time, when Mewtwo would get a hit on you, you would die instantly. So for Chudat to kind of not only beat Mewtwo at Pound 2 to win the tournament over him, but to actually go 6-4 against him in 2007 was remarkable on its own.
He was one of the 2 people in the year to have a positive record on Mewtwo, the other being Korean DJ, but that could also be argued to just be a lack of data. Chudat actually fought him several times in the year and just came out on top most of the time. He was just an incredibly consistent player and just could contend with the best of them on any given day, even as late as 2007, 2008.
So think about how. So don't just think about his tournament victories if you're listening, or what tournaments he's won, or like his placings, but think about who he's beaten across all the eras. From 2004 to 2006, he basically had set wins over every single relevant and every single top 5 player. Although against Kenny he had a lopsided losing record, but still having a victory against him is good. And then in 2000, then he had several wins, as I just said, against Mewtwo Korean DJ, a few against PC Chris. But just in case you thought he was done there, at Pound 3, he finished 5th in 2000 at the beginning of 2008, defeating players like Hacks, Forward, Wobbles, Silent Wolf, and Dark Rain, all extremely strong regional players that even if they weren't top 10, they were at least honorable mentions for top 10 or top 20 to 25 players in the world. In case you didn't think that was enough, in 2009 he beat Hungrybox twice, also placing 5th at Revival of Melee, and placing in the top 8 of each tournament he entered.
Chu is the only reason Chu wasn't top 10 in 2009 was because that was when he started to transition to Brawl over Melee. And actually, this should be stated is that Chudat is also one of those few people that has been good in multiple Smash games. He was the best Kirby in the world at Brawl at one point, and had multiple set wins off of top players. In Smash 4, he's a fairly solid Cloud main now, and in PM, he was also considered one of the best Kirbys. He had set wins on people like Armada in Project M, which is still incredibly impressive, because Armada was undefeated in Project M for a very long time. So Chu doesn't only have longevity in Melee, he has longevity in Smash as a whole. He's just good at every Smash game that he plays.
Yeah. And obviously we can go on and talk about his 7th place at EVO 2015. We can talk about him defeating Hungrybox at Zenith 2012. He just really has consistently strong wins that stand the test of time, and he's extremely portable across eras. I think the only thing that you could really hold against Chu is the fact that he was never really considered the best player in the world. He was just considered sort of someone that could hang with the best player in the world. But I think his biggest strength is by far that he has been more relevant for longer than pretty much anyone in Smash history. Not even Mewtwo.
I would say everybody.
Not even Mewtwo can say that he has been top 20 or top 25 for so long as Chu.
Yeah. I'd say Chu's been good. Even if you want to go way back when he started in 2002 as a freaking Fox main, he was still one of the best on the East Coast. Still one of the best in MDVA. He was still like top 10, top 5 in NDVA. And he just, from 2002 to now, he's been an insane player. Even as recently as this year, he became the first Ice Climber player to ever take a game off of Armada's Peach in tournament, which is insane. Chu is just continuing to break records and just be amazing. Just do his pose. Get out of here, Chu.
So, what do you think of where I placed him at number 10?
Personally, I value his longevity extremely well. But I can understand why you rate him at number 10. I think that that is a fair placing. I personally have him at number 8 just because I think his longevity from 2002 or 2003 as a top player to now is crazy. But I can understand putting him at number 10 because he does have a lack of titles to his name.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is that when you're compared against the best players, longevity still matters, but I feel like differentiating yourself in terms of title victories also matters. And it would just seem odd of me to put Chudat ahead of someone like PC Chris, who, for the most part, when they were both in the same scene together, in the spotlight, PC Chris was considered the better player.
Yes, I would say that PC Chris actually had an argument for number 1 in the world at one point, while Chudat did not. And speaking of PC Chris,
yeah, that'll move us into the next post that I made about PC Chris. Sort of his legacy on the game was more so he was the first guy that you might remember him if you're listening to this as the first person to defeat, or the first like really big Spacies player to defeat Ken. But he also had a lot of other really good characters, like his Peach, for instance, was considered one of the best in the world. He has 4 major titles at MLG New York Opener 2006, FC6, Las Vegas, MLG Las Vegas 2006, and OC3. Just sort of he's very similar to Korean DJ in that he left the scene kind of briefly after his prime. Sort of a what if in that in that case, but his prime was extremely good. He was top 5 for 3 straight years. Just really, he was always really he was always able to hang with the best players in the world, and I think in 2006 you could have made a case for him being number 1.
yes, I think the top 3 of 2006 were all extremely close. Ken, Az, and PC Chris. They actually all had really good arguments for number 1. And PC Chris at his peak, I think was just so. I think he was convincingly number 1 at one point. Like when he won MLG New York, there was definitely he was definitely in the conversation for number 1. And I think he was just. Never mind. I'm done.
It's all good. What do you think about where I placed him?
I actually think that you placed him about right. This is where I also have him at number 9, though I have different people around him. But I also have him at number 9. I think I think he has just the right amount of titles and longevity to get him into this top 10 and not just put him at number 10. I think he has the right amount of longevity, the right amount of influence in the scene as both a Spacey and Peach main. Especially his Peach. His Peach goes under the radar, but his Peach is super good. But he has so much influence and just so much longevity and stuff in the scene. He is actually still very good today. He just can't really play because he is at work. He actually recently got a promotion to manager at his job. So congratulations to PC Chris.
Oh, congrats, PC.
Yeah, so he has very little time to work, but he has very little time to play. He has too much work, so he can't really compete anymore. But rest assured, he's still a very good player. And he'll always be a very good player. He's
PC Chris.
PC Chris, man, he's the greatest player in the world. Have you not seen the website? All the red.
Yeah, if any of you have the chance, I would definitely recommend looking at that. All right, so that kind of goes into what we've figured out so far. Pika, you want to show your part of the chat?
Okay.
Or your cam.
Oh, what about my cam? I don't know what I want to do.
No, I'm just saying turn it on because we've gone over sort of what we've already done. I know we kind of just rehashed the articles, but hopefully Hopefully this was a little more interactive or informative.
Yeah, we had some people in the chat. It was Fire Plover actually came into the chat is actually in the chat right now, and he was talking to us. He was asking some questions. He was saying that our next couple episodes could be a little bit better. So he gave us some suggestions. Oh, by the way, I'm here. This is my face.
Yeah, this is actually what I imagined you to look. This is what I imagined you'd look like just in real life, just literally Pikachu.
Yeah, man. Sorry, my camera's going like in and out. It'll be fixing it in a little bit. But yeah, so yeah.
So
Not much else to say. The chat was pretty inactive, but we didn't have a lot of viewers. But Fire Plover did come in around the time we were talking about you. So
it's all good.
yeah.
Should we invite Fire, or should we? Is Fire in the Discord?
No, he's not actually. He's not in the Illuminati. Oh. we shouldn't be talking about that.
Oh, we shouldn't be talking about the Illuminati. Oh no.
Meow conspiracy.
So that kind of leaves. So who do you think I should put at number 8? Let's see if you can make your case.
Me?
Yeah.
I think. Well, first of all, nobody left should be at number 8 because Chudat should be at number 8. Obviously, that's just me.
So would you value longevity over? So you do value longevity in relation of Chudat over PC's titles?
I do. I think it's really close. I think they're actually both extremely close when you show me the data. I think they're both really close, but I actually do value Chu's longevity insanely, especially the fact that he has been so good for so long, and that even his floor, the worst he's ever been is like top 40. Which is insane, and the best he's ever been is second in the world. I think that's really good. He was never the best, but his longevity is crazy enough for me to put him a little bit higher than you did. But I think yeah.
So just to like needle/challenge you on that in a little bit, would you put Mewtwo ahead of Ken for that reason, even though Ken has more than twice as many titles?
Well, no, I wouldn't, because Ken wasn't just like arguably number 1 at one point. Ken was number 1 pretty convincingly for like 4 years. I think that's a bigger difference. I think there's a bigger difference between Mewtwo and Ken than there is between Chu and PC. I think Ken is pretty convincingly above Mewtwo. Because Ken is.
Was Ken convincing, like unbeatably number 1 in 2004 or 2006?
I would say 2003, he was 100% number 1. In 2004, I think there's some arguments for everyone, but I'd say overall 2004 was a fairly convincing year for him. If you take into account everything,
yeah,
he won.
I mean, I think he's clearly number 1 in those years, but I don't think the gap is as big as it was like at the time. Like I think at the time people thought he was the best, but there were definitely challengers.
Yeah, I think it's just because he was number 1 for so long, people just assumed, oh, he's just so much better than everybody else. But it was really just like he was able to clutch out a lot of different situations. Though I do think 2003 and 2005 are by far his most dominant years. I think he was dominantly number 1 in 2003 and 2005. And even in 2007, he was number 2 in the world.
So you're saying his gap, or the kind of number 1 he was more important in terms of winning titles, is more important than Mewtwo years, correct?
I would say yes. I would say Mewtwo longevity is really good, but it's just nothing compared to Ken's. Ken didn't just have peaks. He had long peaks. They weren't just like short peaks like PC Chris was. He actually had longevity in his peaks. He had 4 years of number 1. That's crazy.
So you're saying his peak is more important, but at the same time you're saying that Chu should be ranked ahead of PC, despite Chu only winning 1 title.
Yes, I am, because I think PC's peak is not as impressive because PC's peak in relation to Chu is not as impressive as Ken's peak in relation to Mewtwo. That's my opinion.
Okay, all right. No, I think that's a fair point to bring up. I certainly think that PC's sort of time at the top 5, while certainly definitely there. He isn't quite number 1 the same way that Ken was in terms of the analogy working.
Yeah, I would say PC Chris definitely. I'd say overall his peak was higher than Chu's, but it wasn't that much higher. It wasn't like PC was like number 1 and like Chu was like number 4. It was like Chu actually in terms of our rankings, Chu had a higher ranking at number 2, while PC's highest ranking was 3. The reason we say PC had a higher peak is because while we had him at number 3, the gap was so much smaller between number 3 and 2 and 1 than it was in 2005 with 2 and 1 for Chu. So I'd say their peaks are actually relatively similar. I would give the edge to PC, but he doesn't have that much higher of a peak, and Chu's longevity is much longer than his.
I mean,
So,
I think the titles definitely kind of go in PC's favor.
definitely.
That's
Definitely.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I think I brought this up in the article, but it's like it's like playing tennis. It's like if you follow tennis, if there's a guy that wins more Grand Slams than another, and that's still played in less years, usually the guy who's won more Wimbledons, U.S. Opens, and that kind of thing will get the benefit of the doubt over the guy that's just been a top 10 to 20 player for longer.
I mean, that makes sense, but I feel like the way we rate people in Smash is a little different than tennis. It's very similar, but it's a little different. I feel like Smash values longevity at that area a lot more. I don't know why, for any particular reason, but I just feel like we do. And I feel like Chu's longevity is crazy, especially since so many people either got worse or dropped off during that time, or just quit, like Ken, like all the top players from that time, Ken, as in PC, all those people, Vociferous, Chudat is the only one that has really stood the test of time. Mewtwo too, but Chu's longevity is unmatched.
No, that's true. I just think that when it comes down to it, longevity, while it is really important, you distinguish players in the same kind of tier of their prime by their titles, which is why I personally gave PC the nod.
No, I can totally understand that. I think they're really close, though. I think we can both agree it's really close.
What do you think? What do you think Chu's biggest best performance was outside of Pound 2?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think his best performance outside of Pound 2 was
TG6 is my easy answer, but I don't know if there's something I'm forgetting.
I'm trying to think. Zero Challenge 2, OC2. He had what was considered the greatest losers run of all time at that point, because he lost early to K in winners.
Right.
And then in losers, he beat like everybody. He beat like Captain Jack. He beat like Captain Jack, Mewtwo King, Korean DJ, PC Chris. He beat like all of them, and then he lost a close set to Ken in Grand Finals. And that's really impressive. I'd say that's up there with Hungrybox at Apex 2012 for best losers run to not win a tournament.
Oh, you know what? That's making me think about Zero Challenge 3, which is PC's epic run after getting sent early, which I think is so remarkable because it would be the equivalent of Leffen being sent to losers at Gommel and having to beat Duck before beating everyone that he did beat.
Yeah, I would actually say PC Chris's run at OC3 was probably maybe a little better than Chu's at OC2, if only because he won the tournament. So yeah, that was actually a very good losers run. I would say the best losers run at that point. It was very strong. He beat like Vidjo, Dreffen, Hugs, Forward, Ken, Chudat, Mewtwo King twice. I think he beat Korean DJ too. No, Korean DJ didn't go, but he beat everyone else.
The fact that PC beat Mewtwo King twice at Zero Challenge 3, I think, is extremely impressive because of just how much he lost to Mewtwo King in 2007.
That's 2 of his 3 wins right there in the year. That's 2 of them.
Let me tell you, those sets are brutal to watch.
Yeah,
it's
oh
literally
my God.
it's literally like maybe the best case scenario for PC. Like in most or usually the best case scenario is that he'd win game 1, he'd get FD'd second game and just get destroyed. The third game he would get he'd like keep it close and then go down like 2 stocks to 1 and then lose in a really stupid way. And then the fourth game or final game or whatever, he'd try a secondary and get clobbered. And if his secondary ever worked out, his secondary would just get clobbered by whatever counterpick Mewtwo King had next.
Yeah, and like even like Mewtwo King would sometimes just not even beat him with Marth. He would like, I still remember this one set where he lost game 1, and instead of counterpicking FD Marth, he counterpicked FD Falcon against PC Chris's Falco, and he still won, which is crazy because that's actually like not a good matchup at all.
Yeah, that's actually, I was gonna say that's probably just about as bad as you could. Other than Fountain, that's about as bad as it can get for Falco against Falcon.
Like, he's freaking Mewtwo King. Why would he even do that? Was he that confident?
I think I don't know what, because the thing is, like, you could argue it's like kind of a mental block also, but I also think Mewtwo King's just sort of is such a punish heavy style and just relentless when the other opponent is off stage, just kind of went against PC Chris's way. It's kind of similar to how Hugs used to give PC Chris trouble, because Hugs is so patient and grounded.
Yeah, just crouch against down smash, man. Crouch against down
or
smash.
wave dash back forward tilt, or wave dash back
whoa,
forward.
Whoa, that's a little bit advanced for 2006, man. Especially Hugs.
Dude, when Hugs was talking to me about how he was upset about his list, I wanted to be like, you lost to a Roy, but then I realized that that was a normal thing back then. Like,
dude, Neo was freaking number 6 in the world the year before.
No, I wasn't about to roast him for losing to Neo. I was really close to roasting him about losing to J Blaze.
Yeah, roast Roy.
Yeah,
fire.
Because Roy has the fire, dude.
He has the fire, man. He's the man. Oh my god.
No, I just think it's. I think when it certainly Zero Challenge 3 actually might be the most. I'm trying to think of another impressive losers run from that, like until Pound 3. I think that's probably the golden standard for losers runs.
It's like that. If you want to go way back, you got Game Over for Ken, and like OC2 for Chu. But those are the only ones that are really coming to my mind right now.
I think the thing with Ken at Game Over though is that he wasn't like him losing to Chillin was a shocker, but he was still like, you know, it's still Ken. It was still a highly regarded player back then. And when Ken got to,
I think even after he lost to Chillin, it was. I would say even after Ken lost to Chillin, people were still like, oh, he'll get like top 4, top 3, top 2.
Yeah, and when he beat Azen twice in grand finals, you know, it wasn't like a huge surprise. It was kind of a letdown after Chillin beat him, but you know, Ken was still thought of as the world's best player. So whereas I think the thing that makes Zero Challenge 3 so impressive is not just the fact that PC beat Mewtwo King, who always whooped him. It's the fact that PC actually started having to play against Hugs. That really.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Leffen had to play Axe or Duck to get into top 8? Like how just taxing on his mind that might be. I guess more so Duck or Plup to get into top 8. But but somehow he did it.
Yeah, and it's like, and what makes it even more impressive is that if we're right, that was like the first time anybody won a tournament from losing so early in losers. So that's also really crazy. That losers run is actually much better than anyone gives it credit for.
Yeah, Zero Challenge 3, it's the best until Pound 3. Honestly, I would say OC3 is probably, when you consider the Hugs versus PC factor, and you consider the fact that PC, outside of Zero Challenge 3, okay, this will put it into perspective. Outside of Zero Challenge 3, he was 1-9 against Mewtwo King the rest of the year.
Yes, no, I think it was worse than that.
1-10.
He was 1. Yeah, 1-10. 1-10.
He's 1-10 against Mewtwo King the rest of the year, losing every single tournament that he played against Mewtwo King in.
This was the only tournament all year that he won over him. Only tournament. And apparently the grand final sets were really convincing too.
Yeah, that's what. Because when I read posts about it on Smashboards, people were talking about how surreal it was that this dude was like, who always lost to Mewtwo King, was suddenly just beating him pretty solidly in grand finals.
I think it was momentum from the losers run. PC Chris seems like a kind of guy that would get momentum from losers.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure about that, but but I'm sure it definitely played a role.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other losers runs. There's Pound 3, there's OC3, there's Press Start.
So I actually think that what could have been the one of the best losers run was Paragon LA when Hungrybox got sent to losers by Prof Pro, because he not only after barely beating
He
Ken.
barely beat Ken. I wish Ken won. I don't even care.
After barely beating Ken, I'm fairly certain that Hungrybox went through like the gauntlet of foxes or up and
It
coming
wasn't
players.
just foxes. He beat Shroom. He beat S2J. He beat Plop.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking of Big House 5 when he beat all those foxes.
Yeah, he literally had foxes the entirety of like round 2 pools and bracket. But he beat like Shroom, he beat S2J, he beat Plop, he beat Lucky, he beat Leffen, and then he beat
No, after he beat
Westballs.
Leffen,
He beat Westballs.
He beat Westballs, he beat Leffen, and then I think he lost to Mutaking in losers final. That was the infamous Mutaking pop off where his pants were falling off.
Yeah, his butt. The Mewtwo butt. Butt 2 King. But I'm still happy Mewtwo won that.
It was also it was a crazy comeback by Mewtwo because he went down in the set early.
Yeah, he was down 2-1. That was actually the first time he ever beat Hungrybox from being down from a 2-1 or 2-0 deficit. And also, he was also down like 3 stocks to 1 in Game 4 on FD, and he SD'd like twice. I was like, oh my god. He was shaking his head. He was all depressed. I was like, man. And he killed him, and he like 0 to death him twice. The Dreamland 0 to death was crazy.
One of the things I'm going to write when I do my Mewtwo King post Friday for number 7. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to put him at number 7. But one of the things I'm going to mention is that I think there's a misconception of Mewtwo as not ever being able to make a comeback. I think Mewtwo is the ultimate comeback king. I've seen that guy come back, like turn so many bad situations into either favorable ones, not just by his playstyle, but in terms of just literally having the most comebacks. I think you can never count out Mewtwo in a set like where in a set unless he's playing like against a floaty and he's down like 1 to 4. Yeah, if he's playing like Armada or something. But I think
Armada lands on Randall without the timer.
I think other than I think for the most part I've seen more comebacks from Mewtwo against other players than anything else. I've seen him blow leads too, but I think
overall when I look at all this stuff, I think if you take in everything, Mewtwo might be the most clutch player of all time. Like,
it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous to say because he has so many instances of like losing, like Apex off dumb things, like the Pound 4 tournament winner, the Evo 2013 like missed ledge dash, air dodge off the stage. That was so awful to watch.
He's the most clutch player of all time, but he's also the biggest choker of all time.
Yeah, and it's sad that sort of we remember him as like not getting back to the same like 2007 like level winning like the biggest tournament ever at the time or whatever. But I think in terms of just actual comebacks, I've seen him basically pull magic out of a hat, you know?
Yeah, man. Shiz died so we could live.
Yeah, Shiz died so Mewtwo could come back and gimp other species.
Save Melee.
The other crazy comeback is on SFAT at the Canadian. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Yeah, was it EGLX? No, it wasn't EGLX. It was EGLX, but it was the year before the big EGLX. It was like EGLX 2015 or something, I think. Or is it Expo? I don't remember. It was something with an E and an X. I remember that, and it was in Canada. And I actually remember that SFAT was up 3 stocks to 1 on FD.
No, you know why it's memorable?
I don't think the ledge matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
See,
I guess
I actually don't think the ledge matters. And then the funny thing is, like, I think Toph, what he was trying to say was right, like that because SFAT would still technically hold the advantage. But just the fact that he said that immediately and then Mewtwo got... It might be the stupidest gimp I've ever seen in my life to end a game.
He did like dash attack, and then he like forward smash or ferret him off the stage, and then he did like reverse up B. And SFAT had such bad DI on the up B. Oh my god.
The thing is, like, Mewtwo did such a call out on what SFAT would do, and it was like a Hail Mary where he happened to be right, and it like the only way it could have worked is if it directly countered exactly what he thought SFAT was gonna do, and SFAT did it.
Yeah, like if SFAT side B, that whole thing was done. He would have been side B, and then he would have been edge guarded.
Just think about how lucky Mewtwo or but at the same time, like, maybe it's not luck. Maybe he really did know that SFAT was gonna do that thing.
I'm sure if Mango did it, everyone would say that he knew.
Yeah, but
Mango
I remember watching it and being like, oh my god, I can't believe he came back from this. And also like Toph, why would you say that? The ledge doesn't matter.
That might be the second best commentator's curse of all time.
What do you think the first one is?
Okay, there was this one. GR Smash actually has as his number one commentator's curse. It was that Melee FC10R Legacy. Wobbles was commentating. Wobbles is the commentator's curse god, by the way. Every time he says something, the opposite happens. It was like this thing. It was like Hungry Boxing somebody against some other people, and every time he would say something, the opposite thing would happen. Literally every single time. It was a double set.
Oh no, I think I know the one you're talking about.
Literally every single time he said something, the opposite thing happened. It was hilarious.
He and his co-commentator were I remember that. Okay, no, I know what you're talking about.
That's number one, but number two is definitely the ledge doesn't matter.
The ledge doesn't matter is funny because of Vish's reaction too.
I think it does, Toph. I think it does.
Yeah, Vish was like, no, why would you say that? What were you saying, Toph? The ledge does matter. The ledge doesn't matter.
Vish is the best. I love Vish. Vish is the homie.
Alright. Do we have anything else to say? I would hold a question and answer session, but we don't really have anyone.
Yeah. Oh.
Other than Fire.
Plover's definitely said it was EXP. I was right. It was EXP 2015 where he made the comeback.
Yeah. Alright, do we have anything else we want to say to the chat before we go lurk GameFAQs or Reddit?
I don't think so.
Alright, well, for like the 4 or 5 of you that tuned in, thanks. We're gonna try to. I think we had a pretty good plan heading in, but I would like to do a question and answers kind of thing, or maybe go over a few more controversial topics. When my number 8 comes up, I think that'll generate a pretty good amount of discussion. Maybe we can talk about that next week.
Yeah, I certainly have a lot to say about that. But I think next week we should also come up with some other things to talk about. Yeah,
that for sure. Also, I definitely think we should ask our admin if we can let Fire into the Nerd Illuminati Discord.
You know what Plover is saying? He's saying that we should just stay live and talk about stuff that's coming up.
Oh my god. It's like 11:28 and it's the day before Thanksgiving.
Dude, I'm down. I'll do whatever. I don't care.
Dude, then we're just gonna be we're at least with the Smash history thing we have a niche.
We should stop the local recording.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That's cool.